How you going, guys, and welcome back to Rusted Iron Ranch. Today we're going to be digging into the 135. I've got a set of front wheel bearings for it, the Kingpin repair kits with the bush bearing and the felt seal for the top, and I've also got a sleeve, two sleeves I think, for the centre axle pivot in front of the crankshaft there. So I think I'm probably not going to get it done today anyway, but I think I'll probably do this in a couple of videos. I'll get it apart today. We might get might get all the part today. I might get it actually on the bench where I can start replacing the bushes. We'll see how we go. No promises, but fingers crossed I get it apart today and get something done. But yeah, I might just put this down and I'll get some tools and we'll start getting into it. I just thought I'd quickly go through what I am replacing. So obviously in on the stub axle in here, there's two bearings, both tapered roller bearings I believe. So I'm replacing both those bearings, and then the Kingpin up in here, there's a bearing down the bottom here, two seals I believe, and a felt seal that must press in up the top. I'll see once I get the steering arm off. I'm not 100% sure. The other sleeve that I'm doing, so this axle pivots back in here. So when you're going over undulating terrain, the front axle of the tractor can pivot back and forwards. And there's a seal in underneath the fan shroud there. There's a seal in, a sleeve in on that pin. I've only bought the sleeves at this point. If the pin is worn, because the sleeves are totally gone, I don't think they are. The sleeves aren't bad on this. At least one of the wheel bearings will be, but I don't think the actual axle one's that bad on this. But if it is, I'll need to get a new pin, and I don't have that yet. Another thing that I'm doing, so I'm doing both sides of that. Another thing I'm doing is I'm going to correct the offset. If you notice, the offset on this one, the front wheel is about in between or in the middle of the back wheel on here, and so we're one hole out off the center. This one's two holes out. So this was over here, and there's a bolt through that last one, which that would obviously do nothing on this side. So I'm going to correct just the offset of that. It'll look a lot better. I don't know why it's been set up like that. See, it looks a little bit funny. The right hand side comes out a little bit further. It's just something that's bugged me for a while. So I'm going to be fixing that while I've got it all apart. You see on the other side, this wheel bearing is moving a little bit. Kingpin isn't moving anywhere near as much, but the main movement is that center axle pivot. So I think that's the thing I'm going to start with first and try and fix. Okay, we have an issue. This bush has been welded in. This weld all the way around the outside here, and you can see it's actually got this heavy. It's actually only got the one. I believe one might be the standard. Some people are saying two. I didn't know what to expect when I took it apart, but it's only got the one. I might try and fit two. They just say there might be a bit of a binding issue if the two aren't in and they're cocked a little bit, and the pin might not go through easily. So I'm going to have quite a bit of work to try and get this out. So I'm going to have to grind all that weld off first. Grind all the weld off first. I think it's going to be messy. And then try and knock this sleeve out, and then try to get two to fit. I'm nearly tossing up whether to drill here and put a grease nipple in, drill a gallery all the way through. It'll depend. Once I get the two in there, if there's a gap in between them, I might do that. If not, you'd have to drill the sleeves. We'll see. I'll get this out first, and then we'll see. Somewhere. Over here. Yay! Now, off camera, I did actually heat it up a bit. So I heated up the casting, trying to make it belly out a little bit. Hey, you can see it does look very similar to the other, new sleeves. So it's exactly the same. We did have an injury while we're going. So yeah, if I do have to weld it in, if it doesn't seem to fit or hold itself in, I'm only going to tack it. I'm not going to weld around like what that person did. So because that was a pain. I had to take a lot off it too. Alright, let's clean it up. Okay, so I've cleaned this face up. It's looking pretty good. There is this side. It has had some repairs done previously. I've got a bit of a plan what I'm going to do. I am going to put the two sleeves in. I'm not going to whack them in yet. I'm going to go get some grease and put on them so I can get them out. I'm going to put the two sleeves in, and then I'm going to center them. So imagine they're in on the sleeve, on the center pin. So I'm going to put them in there, and I'm going to have the pin in it while I just tack weld, so then they stay true to each other. So I'll have the pin in one side, tack weld, because I don't think they're going to stay in. One side might, the other side might not. Either way, I'm going to have the pin in and tack weld one so it stays true to the other one. I have heard they can bind up a little bit with your run two. It does make sense to run two. And I'm going to get the one in, so I'm going to go get some grease. I'm going to put the one in, and I'm going to measure how much I've got the other side. Just see if they do actually meet up, because if they meet up like this, it would be really nice if I could get a grease nipple in here too, drill and tap a grease nipple in the top or something like that. If they don't meet, well, I can just have the grease nipple come out the hole, come out where they don't meet, and then I can just pump the center full of grease and it'll eventually squish out here somewhere. If they do meet, might have to drill out these or something like that, which isn't going to be that easy. I'll see. I'll get them in and I'll see how they look. Okay, so both bushes are in. I tried to drill a hole for a grease nipple. The cast part was okay. This is near impossible to drill a hole through. So I'm going to abandon that idea until maybe next time. I cleaned this up in the lathe, as you saw, and it fits pretty well, and it moves. That's about where it sits. You can see where the wear mark is on the. So that's about where it sits, somewhere there, I'd say. And that's pretty free, but it's near no play in there, which is good. So I'm pretty happy. The amount of force that it took to bash them in, I'm pretty happy that they're not going to move. So with that, I'm not going to weld them. I'm just going to clean up the mating faces with the wire brush. I'll clean up the faces on the tractor too, on the like the outriggers of the axle. So just in here, I'll clean up them, and I'll reassemble with heaps of grease. Might even smear some grease on these as well, just to, especially in the holes. So yeah, I'll set you back up, and I'll start putting it back together. Okay, centre pivot is all back together. I'm just kind of rocking the wheel here, and we're getting zero play down at that pivot, so pretty happy with that. I did cut down those bolts, I don't know if you noticed, so I put them in full length, and then I thought I'd cut them down. This wheel bearing is still loose though, so I might just quickly whip that off now, see if it's inspect the bearings, see if the bearings are still okay, and if they are, I might just tighten them up. Okay, we got it finished. So I didn't end up doing the wheel bearings. They were absolutely perfect. Left hand side needed adjusting, was slightly too loose. Kingpins, also fine. I had to tighten this bolt here. That's the only one. I corrected the offset, so they're both roughly in the middle of the back wheel now. Only one bolt showing outside, one bolt showing outside. I did tighten up these on both sides. To what effect, I'm not sure. It feels a little bit tighter now. It doesn't seem to be as noisy. That seems pretty good to me, that. The biggest thing was the centre pivot. Obviously it was probably most of my issues. It's now got two bushes in there. I didn't weld them. I got two in there, and the force required to get them in there, I'm satisfied will hold them in there. So there's two. It didn't bind up on the pin, but I've thoroughly sandpapered it down and thoroughly lubed it before I went in as well. So it's got copper grease on it. I'm going to leave everything off it for the minute. I'm actually going to give it a service. I need to take the fuel tank off and go through. I'm going to adjust the tappets again, but I'll probably turn that into another video. So this is it for today. That's back together. All the bolts are back in their holes so I don't lose any, but in the next couple of days I'll probably get on to taking the rest of that off, and there's a couple little things I still want to do. I'll explain more when I do that video, probably later this week. Alright, well anyway, thanks for watching. This is Rusted Iron Ranch. My name's Terence. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. Hopefully you got something out of it today. Like I said, not an instructional, but maybe you'll pick up some things that I'm doing right or doing wrong. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.